All right, so assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for our diversity, equity, and inclusion training with Shajarah. We're going to go ahead and start inshallah with Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, most merciful. All praise is for Allah, Lord of all worlds, the most compassionate, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. Guide us along the straight path, the path of those you have blessed, not those you are displeased with or those who are astray. And I'm going to hand it over now to MWO Director Sadaf.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies. As you know, my name is Sadaf Saeed. I think I know everybody on here. I just wanted to welcome you all to this training, and I appreciate you all coming on. And I know I sent this really threatening kind of email that you need to be here, but I think it's just really important for us to follow our commitments up with action. And if we think about what our organization MWO looked like 10, 12 years ago, it was just a bunch of Pakistani and Indian women, and we've been trying really hard to think about who are the Muslim women in our community and how can we represent them in an authentic way, like who are the faces that we see and how can we have those faces also in our organization. And after the 2020 murder of George Floyd, we came out with this whole statement, Muslim Women for Black Power. And, we made a commitment to advance racial justice and equity and, and anti-Blackness within our organization and our community. And this is another session in a series that we try to keep bringing to light again and again, because we think it's really important. I know we've done, I think we did with Muslim Arc a couple of sessions a couple of years back and last year, and we just don't want to forget this subject, because there are so many things we need to learn and we can never think we know everything. And I'm really grateful for you all that you're here, because if we want to really create change in our community, within our organization, in our cultures, we have to come together to do it. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to hand it back over to Sophia.
Thank you, Sadaf. Thank you for providing that context for, why we're here tonight and why we're doing this training. So I think most of you know me, but if any of you don't know me, I'm Sophia, the MWO Women's Action Network Coordinator. Thank you again for joining us tonight for our training with Shajarah. We're so excited. So today's training is part of our Her Leadership Toolbox series, which is made possible through the generous financial support of Islamic Relief. This series of monthly trainings has been designed to support the Women's Action Network, which is a community of practice dedicated to supporting the leadership of Muslim women through the sharing of knowledge and resources. So if you are a local Muslim woman leader who's not already a part of our group and who would like to join, I'll drop a link in the chat for a form that you can fill out, or you can reach out to me. So without further ado, we'll just go ahead and introducing our speakers for today. So Kalimah is the co-founder and principal of Shajarah PR and Consulting Group. She is also an author, speaker, retired spoken word performer, and advocate for racial justice, gender-based violence, and humanitarian crises globally. Ujaama serves as the peer practice lead at Narrative Initiative, where she weaves the power of narrative with other social justice strategies to achieve long-term equity. While wearing her many work hats, she is researching racism, discrimination, and gender-based violence in Muslim communities and writing a young adult Afro fantasy novel. She's also enjoying traveling everywhere, being super auntie to 12 nieces and nephews, and hiking Washington whenever she gets a chance. She says, life is good, alhamdulillah. And Shakira is the co-founder and director of public relations. Oh, there's my little one. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. So, Dev, can I have you take over the bio?
Okay, I will. Hold on 1 second. Get myself situated. Sorry.
What a testament to what mothers do.
Absolutely.
Of what we women do, you know, we just let it go. It's just, this is
I
what
say
it
it. I say that all the time.
is. It's so beautiful.
It's like we don't need to apologize when that happens,
No,
because
absolutely
it's
not.
happened to all of us, and it's important to take care of our kids. Okay, so I will introduce to you Shakira. Shakira Parker, she may look familiar to you if you were at our summit a few years back. She was on the stage there, and Shakira and Kalimah have been joined us virtually during election season in 2020 as well. So Shakira Parker is the co-founder and director of public relations of Shajarah PR and Consulting Group. She's also a financial education instructor and a proven leader with Fortune 100 companies with over 25 years of experience in the financial services industry. Her high energy, personable heart, people-centered training approach provides a deeper understanding that breaks down concepts and terms and makes learning and talking about matters less intimidating for attendees. That is perfect for us. I love that. Shakira Parker is a longtime community organizer for local, state, and federal organizations. She uses her platform for engaging the public through their hearts and minds, building strong relationships with diverse cultures and tackling social and political issues. Sophia, take.
All right, we'll just go ahead and jump in. Thank you, Sister Kalimah and Shakira, for being our facilitators for today's training. And we're looking forward to learning with you, inshallah.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. I'm so excited to be here. So as you all know, like I said, I am a hiker. So this picture here is actually, I took this on Rattlesnake Ridge. It's this amazing hiking place in Washington. So if you ever go to Washington, gotta look up Rattlesnake Ridge. So, all right. So alhamdulillah, we're gonna jump right straight into it. We welcome you to this space with us. Before we go on, we're going to do a little bit of logistics. So part of this training, let's go back, can go to roadmap. Part of this training session will be recorded. A red dot icon will be visible in the top right corner of a slide if it is recorded. So we are in Zoom meeting mode and not webinar mode. This means that you can speak if you want to. You can have your camera on. You can also raise your hand if you'd like. We highly encourage cameras to be turned on for this session because we are an intimate group. However, if you need to turn off your camera, please do so. We ask that you also keep yourself on mute if you are not speaking. And please, unless the chat box, use the chat box for questions and comments, or you can save them for the Q&A section. All right, let's see here. So for our roadmap today, we are going to go into our introductions, which we have already started to do. We are going to do some safe grounding rules. Then we'll go on to what is the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion work, do a little icebreaker, and then get straight into the meat and content for topic 1. This is for the first hour and a half. Then we're going to do a break for 10 minutes. So as Sophia has already introduced us, alhamdulillah, my name is Kalimah and this is Sister Shakira as well. Shajarah PR Consulting is located in Tampa, and we are happy to offer our expertise in cultural competency that cultivates real change and development in our globalized neighborhoods. We pride ourselves on setting up our clients for success, and we put people first and challenge the belief of what is security and who or what deserves securing. And so we do this to increase human security so all can live and breathe peacefully with freedom from fear, from need, and from indignity. So going into some safe grounding rules, this training was created to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We wanted to say that first and foremost. Through nourishing our Muslim sisterhood with ihsan, which is excellence, taqwa, and one ummah. This is a safe space, free of judgment, of critique that destroys rather than uplifts and harm in all forms. All voices are validated in this space as lived experiences and must be respected. This training is not meant to target or accuse anyone of causing harm. And some examples and facilitation activity tools use artistic expression, which might include some vulgarity and explicit topics to accurately portray some lived experiences. So we ask that you please listen for the content holistically and try to keep an open mind. If something in this training triggers a strong emotion or trauma, it is a-okay to turn off your camera and step away. So if you don't have a glass of water, I encourage you to go get one. Remember to breathe throughout. And if you need to step away, like I said, then it is a-okay. This DEI training will be using the context of Blackness and the people of the African diaspora to describe for context. And for people who do not know what Blackness is, it is the collective experience or state of being belonging to people of African descent. So the reason why we talk about Blackness and not just Black people is because when we talk about Black people, we want to make sure that you understand that we are not just talking about Black people who are native to America. Rather, we are talking about Black people who belong everywhere, all throughout the United States, all throughout the world. And it is this Blackness that unites people into what we call the diaspora. And people of the African diaspora, the diaspora were dispersed all over the world, usually due to colonialization, imperialism, and of course, the slave trade. All right, so let's talk about it. What is the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion? So diversity, equity, inclusion is this frequent phrase that is tossed around in various spaces without a properly explained definition and context. So we're here to break it down with you, right? So diversity itself means one or many distinctive groups or of individuals having unique traits that belong to a larger and mainstream society. And so these traits are categorized in race, ethnicity, sex, gender, location, disability, religion, age. There's so many categories, right? And so these diverse groups of people tend to be the minority groups or the marginalized groups in a society and have faced greater historical marginalization, which causes a lack of opportunities and equity today. So this is where equity and inclusion comes in, right? When various spaces within a society accurately reflect the people who live within the society, it creates growth, opportunities, success, and it ultimately increases human security. And remember what we said about human security. It is the freedom from need and from indignity and from want. This only happens when diverse groups of people are included at all levels of power. So if you think of this analogy, right, it is not enough to let marginalized peoples into the room representing power, decision-making, and leadership guiding and shaping the society. They must also have the seat at the table in the room and equal decision-making power. And this is true. This is right here is true diversity, equity, inclusion. So when these groups of people win, everyone wins. All right, so now we're going to go into a little icebreaker. I want to know. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around the space, and what you'll do is you'll say your name, what made you interested in this training, just like a little short tidbit. It doesn't have to be too long, and what cat speaks to you like in this moment, or what cat represents how your day went. So I will go first, and then what we'll do is that I think maybe I'll call people down. No, what we'll do is we'll popcorn it around the room, okay? So like I said, my name is Kalimah. What interested me in this
Kalimah, and then just to FYI, so in 7:35, they want to take a break for Maghrib over here. I know you're in Seattle.
Yes. Okay. What time do you guys want to take a break? What time is it?
Like about
So like in
7:35.
Yeah, in around 15 minutes.
In about 15 minutes. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. So how about we do this icebreaker and then we will we'll cut for Maghrib. How does that sound? Okay, cool. All right, so the cat that I'm feeling today is definitely a little bit of the number 4, so it's like bottom left, and definitely bottom right, like all the way right with the caffeine. So that's definitely how my day went. And what made me interested in this training is I love y'all so much, and I love the work that you do. So I was like, yes, of course, I have to do this training. So with that, I'm going to popcorn it to the person on my my right, and I will pass it to Sadaf.
My name is Sadaf. I am feeling like the little gray cat with the sad eyes and kind of worried looking. I had my ultrasound and mammo today, and it's always a little bit stressful until I hear back from my doctor. So I'm that little gray cat. And what brings me into this space is that I am a lifelong learner, and I want to make sure that, you know, I don't know what I don't know, and I want to make sure that I am saying and doing things that are never hurting or harming anyone. I will hand it over to Lori. She's next.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I am feeling like the black and white cat with his Starbucks. I'm just recovering from COVID and for the second time this year. And that is the only thing that kind of kept me into reality, is just having my, it's not the coffee, but it's more of the, you know, sit down, relax, breathe, take life as it comes. So he's my guy. And what brought me to this work, I've been in this work for, it seems like forever. I love working with women and in learning from them, and also sharing my wisdom that I've learned from so many other great people in this world. And just to share, my purpose in life is creating compassionate and peaceful spaces. I did a workshop with you all a couple months ago, and we did that. So this fits with my purpose in life. And I want to learn more, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I want to add a B in there, and belonging is never ending. And we can always learn how to be more inclusive and be just a better person. So I'm going to pass it on to Nyla.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you guys see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just my kids are around, so let me just go to the closet. So I'm sorry, I'm cooking as well. So I'm sorry. So I'm more with the little gray one, but I see him as numb. And that's how I had today. And it's been like that for me right now, because I've been going through this a lot of stuff. So I see him just numb, just trying to stay afloat. And I'm just taking this webinar because I'm trying to get back into learning again. And I've been away from education and from seeking knowledge. So I'm trying to stay afloat by pushing myself to learn and to be out there and to get back into the especially with the women and with the Muslim women too as well, you know, to get back into that. So for me, I see him as numb, and that's me right now. So that's it. I'm sorry. I'm on my phone, so I can't see who's next.
I can call someone next if you'd like.
I see Sister Shakira. No.
Yeah, that's me. I'll take it.
Yes. Okay. There you go.
Okay, let's see. I guess I'm a little bipolar. I guess I could be every cat. I could definitely be the sleepy cat. I'm kind of just getting back from the top one from vacation. And so I'm kind of feeling like that one. Stretched out. I'm very relaxed. I'm always relaxed amongst my sisters. And so that's wonderful. The gray cat, actually, I don't think I'm any of the gray cat. And the coffee, well, here, there you go. Have my chai tea. But I think the reason why I'm here, one is just I value the authenticity of MWO, and I love to love. And I think that we realize that we are stronger together. That's my motto, than we are apart. And then the more that we have conversations, the more that we can realize how much we are similar, and we can identify with each other when we start to add in the humanness. And so that's the reason why I'm here. And let me pass it. We're going to go to Katie.
Khadija, that's you.
And if not Katie, then Miriam.
Oh, it's me. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Like,
Oh, sorry. I unmuted and muted. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Khadija. I didn't realize I was using my work computer. I go by Katie at work. I am here because I took Sadaf's email as a threat. I'll be honest. So I'm here because I got scared. I love cats. I think I have the most beautiful cat. My cat's name is Momo, and he's my security blanket. These cats are cute. I think I'm a combination of the gray, the Starbucks one, and the bottom left, the fearful one, because I think I'm going through a phase right now where I have mixed emotions, a lot of things going on. And so, yeah, it's if I'm fear, then I get my coffee. And if I'm not, I'm up the gray one. But I have been with MWO since it started in one of someone's dining room 10, 11 years ago. So I've been off and on. I am part of the Boss Woman program as well. So yeah, why am I here again? Sadaf's email. And just knowledge is growth, is power, it's strength. So yeah. And I pass it over. I see Sadia Qureshi. Long time.
Oh my God. Hey, Khadija. Nice to
Hey,
hear from you.
you too.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sadia, and I guess what cat would I be? I feel like the middle one that's getting beat up, because sometimes I feel that way about life. That when things get hard, you feel like you're just sitting there and you're taking the punches. And I feel like that's me sometimes. And then why am I here? I was a little threatened by Sadaf's email, but then I know Sadaf, right? So I liked her follow-up. It was very kind and forgiving and graceful. So I appreciated that. I find DEI stuff so fascinating. And I know that like language changes over time. The way people are viewing things change over time. And I just want to be up to date on things I should be aware of, internally and externally. So thank you for hosting this MWO and our guests, our speakers. And then I'm going to pass it to, who's next? Sophia.
Alaikum, everyone. So I would have to say I am the cat with the Starbucks, although I usually don't drink Starbucks, but I drink coffee. So I'm tired, as you all saw my little one. They keep you going. So, but alhamdulillah, what brought me here today is You always hear these words, diversity, equity, inclusion. But really it's about doing the internal work. And, whenever I hear, oh, racism, oh, this, oh, that, I'm like, I'm not part of that problem. But then you notice things in yourself and you're like, actually, you know what, I am part of that problem. So I'm here to learn, and to just, feel that sisterhood. It's always a pleasure to be in these spaces that are created by MWO. So thank you, everyone. And I will pass it over to Nortel.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Nortel, and I've been with MWO for a while. I am currently the treasurer, and I think I am a combination of all three cats at the bottom. I have a corporate tax deadline that's really biting me in the butt. So, I feel a little bit overwhelmed with my eyes wide like the cat on the left. The one in the middle, it feels like the tax returns are beating me up. And of course, I drink my coffee to keep me going. The reason I'm here is I want to hear different perspectives on the topic and possibly share my experience if necessary. But my main purpose is to learn and also hear other people's perspectives, like you said, on said topic. Thank you so much for having this discussion. I think it is absolutely necessary because sometimes people do not realize little things that really stands out. And it is important that we discuss this. So thank you again. And let's see, who do I pass it on to? I think I'll pass on to Michelle.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you guys see and hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Michelle Buspa. I am the Gender Equity Coordinator here at MWO. And I guess today I am the cat on the bottom right with the Starbucks. If you know, you know. And I'm here tonight because I'm a social worker and I have been for a very long time. And so as a part of that, diversity, equity, inclusion has always been a part of that. And it's always expanding and growing. And so I like to always be learning more about it because there's always something more to learn. So yeah, and let me see here who I can pass it to. I will pass to Amani.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everybody. I feel like a sleepy cat. Usually I just ate dinner and that is the time where my head get heavy a little bit, but after a little bit I get awake again. So, and I don't drink coffee. So I'm here because Allah challenged me in my life few times that I could see my biases, and I know that blind spots always remains a bit more. So I am open, and I love to learn about other, about all cultures and diversity. And I started to enjoy that actually. Meeting people from all walks of life has been part of my life experience that I am grateful for. And I work as a chaplain for MWO, and I definitely need to be aware of the issue more and more, so I can provide appropriate spiritual care. And I also do the workshops and educations, Islamic education for for many communities, and I want to know ways I can bring that education and awareness to those communities, inshallah. So thank you for the invitation, and I will pass it to Rihab.
Hey, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Inshallah, you're all well. I've been thinking about those cats, and what I've noticed is I'm the cat that has that eye with the coffee, looking at the happy cat, a sleepy cat, and the one who's fighting, because those are the three girls that I'm dealing with right now. One of them I was teaching math, and one of them I was struggling to get their work done on time, and one of them I was trying to give them screen time. So so those are the three cats that I'm looking at with that eye, and I'm helpless. So that's my story, and alhamdulillah for this training. I guess in MWO, I am a buddy for the converts. I kind of try to be there for them when they enter into this journey, and just to give them support, just to be there, just to be a guide. And I guess going through this course will help me understand them even better, who's coming from all phases of life, people whom I've never been around with, different cultures, different environments, different families. So this will be, inshallah, be more helpful for me to understand them even better. That's it. And I am going to pass this to Arij.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Arij, and I am also a chaplain, and I'm here to learn more because this field, like you mentioned, is always expanding, and I'm curious as it continues to expand how we can continue to provide equity and inclusion, and also because a lot of my friends do this type of work, and I'm interested in just knowing how to balance all of the different parties that come into a space so that everyone feels like they're safe, like they're heard, and also how to challenge the powers that be. So there's a lot of, realistic on the ground realities with this type of work. So there's the theory, and then there's the on the ground reality, which is constantly different. And so how to challenge the kind of white supremacist tendencies of marginalizing certain groups. I'm also interested in an implicit bias. Like Amani said, there's so many blind spots that we have, and they can have really terrible consequences. So learning how to come to terms with our implicit biases. And the cat that I would choose would be the one on the top left, I guess, staring at the screen, the white cat with the peach background, because I'm always just trying to stay upbeat regardless of what's happening. And that's really my goal, is just to continue to raise my own energy level so that I don't get too tired, because this work can be exhausting, and so it's important for us to kind of stay upbeat and help those around us also stay upbeat. So hopefully I can continue to do that. But I may end up like the one next door, the sleepy one too. So back and forth between those two. All right, thank you guys, and I'll pass it on to see, I've heard from mostly everyone.
I think Arshina is the only one that hasn't gone yet.
Okay, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. How are you? Okay, so if I had to choose, I would say I'm the sleepy cat, because I was in Canada this weekend and got back late last night and went to work today and just tired. The reason I joined the session is I actually live and breathe diversity because I'm the VP of Human Resources for Orlando resort company that owns hotels. So obviously DEI is something that we spend a lot of time doing in terms of training and understanding others' perspectives. And obviously we all have biases. That's why, we don't know we have them. That's why they're called unconscious. So it's really important to understand from other points of view and framework what those biases are from others' point of view. So that's one of the reasons I joined. Thank you.
We also have Mariam and I believe Saadia. Are you here in the space as well?
I think I
Sadia
might.
already went.
Yeah, there's another Sadia.
I'll go next. I think I'm the last one, and I just heard the Maghrib Adhan, so I'll just make it really quick. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm so glad that I was able to attend this meeting because, as Sadr knows, usually my evenings are when I work. But the cat that I first felt with was the Starbucks cat. Although I don't drink that much Starbucks, I try not to. I just try to drink at home, but I was a teacher for many, many years, teaching math in middle schools. And so I needed that cup of coffee in the morning. But then I also feel with the cat that's kind of laying down with his arms up, like, I surrender, because I sometimes feel like we just have to submit, whatever's going on in our lives. We have to submit to Allah. We have to just surrender and let, like you said, tawakkal and having that ihsan, having that focus on what we're doing here. This is such a wonderful topic. I love this topic, especially because I'm an educator and I'm working with leadership in education and, trying to break those barriers that have been there for so long in the education system. So yeah, I'm so happy to be here and learn with you guys. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. All right, thank you all so much. I was very fascinated by your reasonings of which cat you are. I was like, oh my gosh. So thank you all so much. We are going to take a 15-minute break for Maghrib. So it is 7:41 your time. Inshallah, let's come back at 8 p.m. Yeah, 8 p.m. Okay. Thank you. There are two topics that we are going to go over in this session. In the next session, we're going to go over two more topics. So for the first topic that we're going to talk about today is biases. We're going to do a deep dive into biases. All right, so let's talk about it, right? So biases are attitudes, beliefs, and feelings that shape discourse and actions. So discourse means speech. Biases can form from the environment we live in and the identity groups we belong to. And remember those identity groups that I was telling you all about before, meaning like your race, your ethnicity, your gender, your sex, your location. Biases can form from any of those identity groups. They can also form from the individual interactions and experiences we have, which in turn influence how we view the group as a whole. Biases are also natural to have. They're very natural to have. They are just what make us human, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to be that way. Biases can be reinforced when one interaction or experience reflects the following interactions and experiences with a same or similar outcome. And biases don't change unless they are interrupted or challenged repeatedly. So I'm gonna give you a silly example, and then I'm gonna give you a more serious example. So since I was a little kid, I did not like dates. I thought dates looked ugly. My mama said she didn't like dates. So obviously I didn't like dates. And I thought they looked like cockroaches. My mama also thought they looked like cockroaches. So I never ate dates. I hated them, okay? And then I got to Seattle And also I actually had tasted a date and I was like, ugh, I don't really like this. Like, it's not as bad as I thought, but I was like, ew, I'm still not going to do it because they look like cockroaches. Absolutely not. So when I moved to Seattle after college, everyone is a heavy date eater up here. The community that I'm a part of is the Somali community up here, and my sister is half Somali. So obviously, you know, I'm around a lot of Somalis a lot, and especially during Ramadan, dates. Okay. So I was like, okay, it's the Sunnah. I guess, you know, I'll try some more dates. And so I was like, and then repeatedly I had some dates. And I was like, is my opinion changing of these dates? And then the next Ramadan, I was like, yo, I gotta eat dates because, you know, they're also healthy. I was getting on my healthy journey and I was like, okay, well, dates are definitely an alternative to, you know, maybe like chocolate, you know, especially during Ramadan. So I was like, okay, let me get a thing of dates. And then I realized that, oh, there's dry dates, there's juicy dates, and there are some moldy dates. But overall, I think I like dates. And so after that, I cannot go a single day without eating some dates. And to this day, when I moved back to Tampa, I got so mad when I couldn't find any really good, juicy medjool dates. Like, oh my goodness, or ajwa dates. I'm just like, yo, I am now a date eater and I freaking love dates. That is an example of how biases can form from an environment and how they are natural to have, right? And how they're reinforced throughout time. However, they change when that behavior is interrupted, and it has to be interrupted repeatedly so that your belief about them changes and it's now cemented. And now I love dates. So that is an example of a silly example of how biases can form and how biases can break. So I'm going to give you all now a more serious example, one that's usually found in something in our community, right? So there are certain narratives about Black Americans overseas, you know, as we know, that can come from people, you know, what people see from the news, from the entertainment, from social media. Maybe they can also come from the members of their identity groups who live around Black people or who live in America or living in America that tell them. And so when some immigrants migrate here from overseas, right, they're coming with preconceived notions and pre-established notions that can be reinforced by the environment they settle in or the individual interactions that they have. And so, as I said, these biases also don't change when immigrants stay within their identity groups and therefore are very isolated and insulated. So I'm going to give this, right, and apply this to a narrative. An immigrant teenager is settled here from overseas, right? The part of the city in which his family has resettled in is a very low socioeconomic area, mostly immigrants and Black Americans. And from what he's heard from his home country, all Black boys want to be rappers, entertainment artists, and athletes, and that's usually what they grow up to be if they want to be successful. He makes some friends with some Black boys at his new school, and that ideology is reinforced because they tell him, that's what I want to grow up to be. It's not challenged until he goes to college and he finds Black men in his STEM classes, right? And he's like, oh, you know, they don't want to be rappers or athletes, but, you know, it's not changed yet, right? It's not undone until he really becomes good friends with them. He hangs out with them. He goes places with them. Maybe they're introducing him maybe they're introducing him to their family. He takes an Afrocentric class, something about Blackness, the history of Africa, racism, something of that nature, right? He maybe even participates in a social justice event that's happening on campus because there are so many demonstrations that usually happen on campus. And it's not until this that he realizes why that biases he had in the first place existed in the first place. And that bias is not undone until that moment. It took years for him to realize that that bias was not true. Just like it took me years to realize I don't like dates. I love dates. So it just goes to show you that biases can be so ingrained into our nature and what we think. And it's not until we disrupt them that repeatedly, right, that they change. And so on this spectrum, we do have biases that can be positive, negative, or both. And why is that? It's because humans are not one-dimensional. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't make us like that. We have a mix of everything that makes us complicated. So if we're complicated, right, why can't biases be? And we're going to talk about this range or the spectrum of biases later. For now, we're just going to focus on the negative biases. And why the negative and why not the positive, right? Well, it's because positive biases, for the most part, don't cause the societal illnesses in the world. Negative biases do. And you might be wondering, what are societal illnesses? Well, they're things like racism, sexism, classism, and Islamophobia. They structure and perforate everything in our society. So I do have some questions for you guys. You can just, let me know what you think. If negative biases cause societal illnesses, how? Can any of you all tell me how negative biases can cause societal illnesses? And you can post it in the chat or you can raise your hand. Okay. Mom, do you see anybody?
I can answer that.
Okay.
This is Artina. Obviously, in the workplace, it can cause. Sorry, I can't even see the screen. In the workplace, it can cause biases because when it comes to, especially if you work in a workplace that's not very diverse, if you have groupthink where you have, let's say, white males in an office and they all think alike, then they may not promote someone who's of a different diversity or background because of the groupthink, which will continue to perpetuate that progression of people not moving up into the organization or in the ladder because of those reasons.
Absolutely. Okay, so we do have someone else. Lori, before Lori goes, the way that you can raise your hand so that it'll help me to see if you'd like to speak is there'll be like an icon, like a bunch of icons or annotations. And so what you'll do is you can press the raise your hand button. And then when you're done, you can lower your hand too. So, but we'll have Lori and then Sophia will go.
It's under
There's also one in the chat too.
Okay.
So, so I'm going to add. So there's many, but one is it can affect systems. So systemic issues like we may or may not know about housing, where the bias prevents people from living in certain areas or getting certain kinds of loans. And then it, causes great disparity, which we, of course, are witnesses to now. And it also causes trauma. I mean, the person who is, as a Muslim woman, when I covered, it's not in the least bit identical to racism, but discriminatory behavior was exhibited to me, and it was very traumatic. And as we know, trauma affects our psyche and our emotions and our health and our biology.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. And next we have Sophia.
I was just thinking of the example of, so we're talking about how negative biases cause societal illnesses. I was thinking about the example of, certain areas that don't have funding for different opportunities, or that don't have like access to certain types of food. And so because we think that people are unworthy of certain services or opportunities, then they're left with no opportunity. And then we see an increase in things like substance use, when you don't have playgrounds for children, when you don't have, good food for certain populations, then that causes societal illness, because instead of kids playing on playgrounds or playing sports, which are funded through schools and things like that, then you see them, going towards drugs and other things that would be considered societal illnesses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And then we do have one in the chat. Salaf said, influence how we interact with one another. Absolutely. All right, let's go to the next slide. So you are all definitely correct. Those are definitely reasons why how negative biases influence and cause societal illnesses. What we're going to do next is we're going to listen to the spoken word piece. Right. It's called Emmett, and it's by the 2015 Brave New Voices Philadelphia team. So the societal illnesses, right, are just one of the stops in what we call the life cycle of biases. And by triggering societal illnesses, negative biases trigger the life cycle of biases. And I'm going to teach you about that later and how negative biases trigger it. But right now we're going to learn through using the spoken word piece. Like I said, it is by the 2015 Brave New Voices Philadelphia team. And Brave New Voices is an annual spoken word festival and competition by youth teams all over America, Canada, the Caribbean. We even had one, I think, from Africa came. I participated in it when I was a youth in 2013 as a semi-finalist. The Philly team had actually won that year as well, alhamdulillah. So we are going to play this piece and do some analysis on it afterwards. And just to giving you a reminder, this piece might evoke some strong emotions. And so if you need to just take a minute to breathe, to drink some water, that is okay.
I heard he was 14.
Heard he wasn't from around here.
Heard he had eyes like mine.
Heard he was known for being mischievous.
He was mentioned quite a bit in the paper.
You ever seen this boy before?
We ever see him around? Heard he was visiting family. I wish I could put a face to that name.
Those black boys do tend to get themselves into trouble.
We do whatever we can to stay out of trouble.
Well, his mama should have warned him.
Getting lost after sundown is a death sentence.
Oh, hold on, y'all.
They say he was found.
I'll start over.
I heard he was 14.
Heard he wasn't from around here.
Heard he had eyes like mine.
Heard he was known for being mischievous.
He was mentioned quite a bit in the paper.
You ever seen this boy before?
We ever see him around? Heard he was visiting family. I wish I could put a face to that name.
Those black boys do tend to get themselves into trouble.
We do whatever we can to stay out of trouble.
Well, his mama should have warned him.
Getting lost after sundown is a death sentence. We won't rise again the next day.
They say he was found weighted in water, body wrinkled and face swollen. The river doesn't look as blue.
Boys like us are always thought of as pollution. More color in the currents.
A body of water became little. They say he settled to the surface like erosion.
Don't we always look best as fossils, like dead fish? What was it that he did?
His look was probably arrogant, probably instilled itself between porcelain skin and a dress scene.
Did he become a target for a wandering eye, or wandering too far? Didn't his mama warn him about looking the wrong direction?
About looking too confidently in our direction, that he should learn to control his glance?
That the only thing his eyes should have flirted with
was the ground he'd be buried in.
Was his whistle too comfortable in his lethal wind?
Didn't he know how many things sway in it that look just like him?
That look just like us. Mississippi is an abusive mother to black children.
Engaged to a Jim Crow kind of man.
Our hands don't hesitate to suffocate brown skin.
Choked out the last of his small voice. Tied him up in the back of a pickup truck.
Like he was cattle waiting to be slaughtered.
Do you think they drove down our road?
Do you think we're destined to go down this road?
Reports say they gouged his eye out.
Like a pitchfork clawing at a haystack.
Cocked a shotgun to his head.
While foaming at the mouth.
As his brain tissue stained the evening scarlet. Beat his face till. The whistle became a faint tune of torture. Beat his face till.
Even God couldn't recognize his child.
They beat his face till.
Their knuckles numbed against his skull.
His color smeared the southern soil.
His rigor mortis like vomit.
Triggering a potent kind of gag reflex. Black boys need to get used to that kind of smell.
It's not as if we can get away from it. We're always living with it.
We're always dealing with it. Melanin makes such a mess.
Blood stains are too difficult to clean. They pushed the limit of our pigment, wrapped the cotton gin around his neck.
They made him an anchor
to remind us of the weight we carry.
The black burden has always been so heavy. I hope he learned his lesson.
I hope this won't be our fate.
It'd be foolish to make the same mistake twice, so be a lasting silence, won't he?
We know silence all too well, don't we? Don't we? Look how quiet white folks get when a black boy is hushed. The sins of white men know too many colored graves. Our mothers crying over hollow caskets. Emmett won't be the last name to settle on our tongues like sediment. Emmett won't be the last name to dissolve from our mouths. Colored skies repeat death like God has a stutter. We won't let your death go unsung.
Black boy swinging in the dead of night.
You were 14. You had eyes like mine. Our black boys are more than dirt for me.
Oh, man. Okay.
Mouths. Colored skies repeat death like God has a stutter. We won't let your death go unsung.
Black boy swinging in the dead of night.
You were 14. You had eyes like mine. Our black boys are more than dirt for them tombstones, more than residue. We know you won't be the last of us. Just one amenity. A soldier of an army that knows no surrender. We will fight Emmett till we can rise again the next day.
Into the light of the dark black night.
It doesn't matter how many times I watch that poem, it just, man. So this poem, subhanAllah, the youth have just so much to offer. You know, they have so much to offer. But can anyone guess what this poem was about? You can put it in the chat or, yeah, Emmett Till, right. So Emmett Till, as you all probably know or, may have heard of, he was a 14-year-old Black boy in Mississippi. He was abducted, tortured, and lynched in 1955 after being accused of flirting with a white woman whose name is Carolyn Bryant in her family's grocery store. He was not the first to be lynched, and he definitely was not the last. Even today, lynchings still happen. And unfortunately, when the police find them, a lot of the lynchings are categorized as attempted suicide. Alhamdulillah, this was not the case for Ahmaud Arbery in his case recently. And so his case, unfortunately, alhamdulillah, got justice. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we move on? Okay, alhamdulillah. All right. So we're going to analyze that poem in a moment. But the reason why I played this is because we want to look at the life cycle of biases, right? Remember what we said is that biases are attitudes, beliefs, and feelings that shape discourse and action. And so discourse and action, or speech, has three pathways of evolution. Discourse and action could be through the individual level, the societal level, or the worldly level. All three platforms inform and influence and shape the other. And so we don't have time today about analyzing this further, but just know that they do. They do influence each other, and not one is, separate from the other. So on the individual level, we have microaggressions, prejudice, discrimination, and something we call direct racism. And I'll explain this a little bit. On the societal level, we have stereotypes, discrimination, and indirect racism. And on the worldly level, we have colonialism, imperialism, the slave trade, genocide, and ethnic cleansings. So what are microaggressions, right? They are comments or actions that are subtle and sometimes obvious and express prejudice, discrimination, discriminatory attitudes or belief. And then we have prejudice, which are preconceived opinions that is not based on reason or actual experience. And I do have these definitions written down for you all. So just letting you know, you'll be able to get the definitions later. So you don't have to write them down if you don't want to. And then we have direct racism. Direct racism is different from prejudice and microaggressions Because when someone takes an action of direct racism, it is usually from someone who comes from the dominant group, who holds power, privilege, and resources that structures a society. So that what makes it different. So if it is a minority group, say in a society that does not hold power, privilege, and resources, then it would be something like prejudice or discrimination. But it would not be something like direct racism. For the societal level, we have stereotypes, and these are widely general beliefs, ideas, and images about every person in a particular group or people. We have discrimination on a societal level, and this is different from discrimination on an individual level, because the individuals who have the actions of discrimination on a societal level are often a part of the system itself, or are the system itself that shapes and governs some aspects or every aspects of life. So for example, the difference between a student discriminating and a teacher discriminating. The student would be on an individual level if they are non-white, and the teacher who is discriminating would be on a societal level because they are part of the system that governs and shapes some aspect of life. From the system that is created using from the collective group holding power, privilege, and resources, right? And then of course we know, and then of course for indirect racism, this is when the system itself is created from a collective group holding power, privilege, and resources that shapes and governs every aspect or every part of your life. So this is when it's not particularly a person, but it's a policy, it's a law. There are codes, right? That's what indirect racism means. It means that there are no direct racialized occurrences that happen. However, it shapes everything. I have someone in the chat that said redlining. Yes, redlining would be indirect racism. Can I touch your hair? That is definitely a microaggression, you know? So those are the differences. And why is it important to be able to know what these differences are, right? What's the importance of it? It's because words have power and meaning have power. To know where things come from and to identify is to truly get to a place of healing and restorative justice. I did not have definitions for worldly level because these are very self-explanatory here. But if you need one for ethnic cleansing, it is when it is a form of genocide where an entire ethnicity or entire ethnicity group is killed off or eliminated. So, all right. So going back to that Emmett Till poem, right? On the individual level, this is what it looks like. Those Black boys do tend to get themselves in trouble. Heard he was being mischievous. His look was probably arrogant. We know silence all too well. Look how quiet white folks get when a Black boy is hushed. These are biases that individuals have, that translate into the individual level. On the societal level, we have, getting lost after sundown is a death sentence. There are things called sundown laws and sundown towns, and they weren't just in the South, they were everywhere in the United States, where if you were Black and the sun came down, then it was free game to kill a Black person, to lynch them, to kill them. Like it was definitely free game, and laws didn't apply. We also have something called, we also have segregation and redlining and gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is, splitting up districts to regulate who gets the vote, so that's what gerrymandering is. Florida is going through quite a bit of it right now. And so was, I believe, either South Carolina or North Carolina. And then on the worldly level, we have, his mama should warn him. Didn't his mama warn him about looking in the wrong direction, that he should have controlled his glance? These are the residue, statements of slavery. right? This is what the impact of slavery looks like, you know, treating Black folks like second-class citizens because they were slaves and white folks thought they were better than them, you know? And so in conclusion, this is how something like how you can analyze negative biases and through the life cycle of biases. Yeah, white mothers don't have to talk with their sons. Exactly. That would be something from a worldly level because, you know, they didn't have to, you know, the privilege. So we're going to do a little pause here, a little breather. Definitely got to breathe a little bit. Do we have any questions or comments by chance before we move on? Lori?
I'm trying to find my raised hand, and I'm like, well, I'll raise my hand. Thank you.
Girl, I know at this point.
Okay. I just am. I'm just thinking about the legislation, the anti-woke legislation that is in that's happening, and I just, things like this, these conversations, we can have them in our private spaces, and those spaces that we can control. But unfortunately, those spaces are being limited in education. And I know in the classrooms, because teachers are just afraid. They don't want to get fired and, or dragged through the mud. And I'm just so happy, and not happy. I'm honored that we can have this conversation here. And we need to keep having this conversation in light of all that's going on.
Thank you. Absolutely. It sucks what we're going through right now, but I believe in the resiliency of people, and I really do. The stop woke bill, like it's unfortunate that it's happening, but it's not something that we're surprised is happening, and just like we've overcame some things in the past, right? I believe that we're gonna, inshallah, gonna be able to overcome this too. So, all right. So for this section, we are going to do a negative bias activity. So for this, we're going to identify some of the negative biases about Blackness and Black people in the Muslim community, and as well as in your cultural, racial, ethnic identity group. These negative biases can be, you can put them as an individual level, societal level, worldly level, it doesn't matter. And so for 1 minute on each slide, I'm going to give you guys the Jamboard link. I want you to come up with any biases that you can think of, or you can come up with the discourse or the action that results from that bias. So let me give you the Jamb link real quick. Okay, so if you want to open up the Jamboard, I'm also going to stop sharing here and open up and put a screen share of the Jamboard itself. So hold on real quick, stop share. Jamboard. Okay, alhamdulillah. Let's get to it. Okay, so on each slide, we have the Muslim communities. So if you recognize a bias within a Muslim community about Blackness and Black people, you put it here. If you are from any Arab cultures, then you would put something from your community here. If you are from an Indo-Pak, Bangladeshi community, you would put it here. If you are from anywhere from the African diaspora, you would put it here. And if you are from any Eurocentric community, you would put it here. And then what we also see, you have Muslim community, your culture, and then we also have for the last one, amongst women. So if you notice any Blackness or or Black people, like negative biases about Blackness or Black people, then you would put on this slide as well. So you got 3 slides. I'm gonna time it for you all for 1 minute. Oh, that's so sad, a bug flew in my coffee. So I'm gonna time it for 1 minute for each. And does anyone have any questions before we start?
Kalimah, so you said either a bias or an action that results from a bias?
Yeah, or both. Yeah, you can definitely do both. Oh, and if how to do that. So you can create a sticky note like this, right? This is Baha'i. You can have different colors if you want. I'm gonna do orange because I love orange. You'll save it and then just stick it on. And then if you can make it big or you can make it small. So that'll help us kind of keep track. And you're gonna do this about negative biases, the discourse or the action that you know, that you've heard of or know of that happens about Blackness and Black people in these communities. So let me start my timer.
I have a question, Kalimah. So with the different ethnicities, are we supposed to be putting biases that exist about those, or biases about Black people that exist within those communities?
It is the second one. So
okay, so what I hear they see women saying about Black people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Got it.
And also for on the cultural side, if you are Black, you know, you would write out the biases that you received, but you can also write out the biases that you've also heard in the Black community about Black people itself. So. We're going to give this about 2 more minutes and then we'll read some answers. We're going to wrap it up in 1 minute. Okay, alhamdulillah, we are going to look at some of these answers. So what I had asked you all to do was identify some of the negative biases as well as the discourse and action, right, about Blackness and Black people and the communities or the identity groups that you belong to. So let's look at the Muslim community. So we have is converts don't know much about Islam. Yes, that is a bias. Black Muslims are not welcomed in larger Muslim communities. Okay. Muslim women cannot. We're going to put that one as not a bias. Assumptions that they are from the continent of Africa. We have one that says, I'm not able to interpret what Quran or Hadith means to me because I don't speak Arabic or study with a particular imam. Yeah, that is definitely a bias received. Do non-Arabs actually know how to read and write the Quran? Okay. That Black Muslims are different and separate. And we also have they must be Nation of Islam. And assumptions that all Black people are converts. An assumption that all Black people are poor or need charity. Okay. All right, let's look at the next one. All right, so we have an Arab culture. We have Black people are violent. Black people are not worthy of marriage to a son or a daughter. Blacks are not educated well. They're poor, dangerous to be around. Arrogance because of the Arabic tongue, the Arab tongue. Who said this one? So I can understand a little bit more. Okay, we'll come back to this one here. Black people only get along with other Black people. All right. Black people from only some countries can be trusted. Okay, they are nation Muslims. Rich and arrogant oil-rich Gulf Arabs assume they're superior. That's kind of a bias, but it kind of ties into the other bias, so we'll let it slide. Who posted the arrogance because of the Arab tongue? That one. I wanted to make sure I understood that one. Okay, well, we'll just come back to it. All right, so we have in Desi culture, we have Black people have guns with them at all times, got to stay away. Don't marry a Black person, your kids will experience racism. That one's interesting. Black skin is unattractive as compared to white skin. All right, trying to be ghetto, dirty. All right, then we have criminalization of Black people and neighborhoods. And Kala, that's a new one. All right, used as a slur. So you have that one. None for here. All right, in white cultures, token white hijabi, voice only needed. It's definitely one. Black areas are dangerous, prone to anger. Black people can't be trusted. Lazy criminals, drug addicts, lock doors in your area. All right, and then let's see here. We have amongst women. Black women should work in low-income jobs, no natural hair in schools. Black women not able to obtain high standing careers, not well educated, and we are not safe amongst young Black kids. And we have cannot marry Black men, and they're not invited to social gatherings. So yes, these are all biases, and alhamdulillah, I'm happy that you all put these out here, you know, because these are the things that really do go on in our communities, you know. So I'm happy that you guys came, you brought your A game, you know what I'm saying? And that's important. We're trying to do this work, is to be completely honest about where the communities that we come from, right? So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here, and then we're gonna go on to the next one. So the reason why this stuff was important is because we're gonna see how it plays out on the range of biases. And then we're gonna do an activity. So I'm gonna share my screen again. Stop too.
I also wanted to, I think, make a comment or ask a question. Like all those things, even if we were to switch it up and say, what are the biases or that are there about Desi women or about Arabs, I think that's important too, because we're in a space with such a diverse group of people. Like, I think all of those different kinds of biases need to be recognized. You know, it's not just about Black people. We need to be mindful of Black people, but you may be in a space without Black women, but you're also treating, say, West Indian women, you know, a Trinidadian woman in a specific way, and that's not okay. So I think that regardless, these biases can show up between anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually going to talk about that in the second half of the session. So you're a little ahead of me on that one, but don't worry, we're going to get to that after we finish this portion. So, but you're right, some of these biases do show up, you know, especially colorism, you know, within our own identity groups. And so we'll talk about that section later. On this one, we're going to talk about the range of biases. So for this section, we're going to talk about that there are 7 types and that people can have more than one bias type. However, even though they can have one or more bias types, people tend to rate higher. And so some of these biases can carry the same traits as other biases, like you'll see, And so in this section, we're going to go over the range. And I want you to start thinking about which bias types you might have when it comes to Blackness and Black people. And I want you to try to be very honest with yourself as possible. In the meantime, what I want you all to do, so we're gonna, because we're kind of short on time, what we're going to do is we're going to work through an activity on this section as well, at the same time with me breaking down the 7 types of biases. So in the chat, I had posted two files. If you all can go to the chat real quick. So in the chat, we have, let me see, I hope I sent it to everybody. We have the range of biases. It's a PDF of the slides we're about to see. And then we have identifying your bias types on the 7 spectrum. So what I'm going to do actually real quick, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to go to that document so that you can do the activity as we're going along each bias type. So let me go to the range. We're going to go to the identifying your bias types. Where is the, okay. My screen said, you have so many things up here. All right. Okay, can you all see my my screen? So this right here is the PDF, right, of the slides. But let me show you the actual document. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, can you see the document? Can you all let me know? Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, so what you're gonna do is everyone on a computer? Let me first ask that question.
No.
No.
All right, so if you're not on a computer, what you'll do is, do you have paper on you by chance?
Yep.
I do.
Okay, so what you'll do is for each for each row, we're going to go through each one of the identity traits. Okay, you're going to either highlight or check off which bias trait that you think you might have, because at the end we're going to tally them all up. So if, for example, say I score, okay, I have I score for solidarity and allyship. I think I have that trait. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be like, okay, I have that. I'm gonna have that and I have that. If it's something that shows in all, shows across the row, then you're going to count it. You're going to check it off, okay? If, for example, I have, I don't know, maybe, what's it called? Hard to communicate with because of this, right? Or fear. So then I check those off. And then at the end, what you'll do is that you'll tally each column in, let's see here quick. You'll tally each column so that it adds up. So for example, if I measure I have a 7 here and I have an 8 here, a 2 here, right? Then that's how I'll know which bias type I have, which is higher. Does that make sense by chance? I want to make sure I'm getting clear instructions. Okay.
But you're going to be reading something else and then we're going to choose which one is applicable, right?
Yep, choose which one is applicable. If it's something that shows an other, like across the row, check that one off too. If it's not across the row, like say cultural assimilation, right? Then that one just applies for this bias trait, that column. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go to the I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, alhamdulillah. All right. Okay, so the first one we have is called the positive bias. So the positive bias received by Black Muslims is positive because or by non-Black Muslims or non-Black people is positive because usually the experiences with Black people have been positive. And so usually the stereotypes that are that exist in this might be like celebration, uplifting, just overall positivity of Blackness. In this, people might view people, non-Black people might view the identity trait as Black first and Muslim second. So that's like the first thing you see. And then being Muslim or being, human or any other identity trait that you have is like the second thing that you see. And this is based upon interactions, first impressions. Someone having this this bias trait might have a wide range of knowledge of Black people. And if they don't, then they're very willing to learn. They're definitely down for the cause. So some of the traits that are expressed in here is, solidarity and allyship, like true solidarity, allyship. And even if they don't have it yet, this is something they want to have because they're just down for it, right? They have an amazing cultural appreciation of Blackness. They might even to the point of cultural assimilation. And cultural assimilation means that you were literally at one with the culture. You live around Black people. You might have Black children. Like you just immerse in the culture or cultures. You're assimilated, but assimilated in a good way, right? A positive way. They're knowledgeable. They're maybe knowledgeable, and if not, they want to know more. They're very open-minded. Inclusion. There's this term, it's called epidermalization. It means imposing race on the body. And that means that when you're interacting with someone, you're acting on, this is your Black sister, right? This is someone who was Black. And so you're treating them, you're seeing their color first, and then you're acting on it as well. And then we have, like I said, positive stereotypes like, Black girls rock, or, Black people can do anything, or, just very like positive stereotypes that are out there, Black excellence, things like that. Does anyone have any questions before we move on from this one? I'll give you like
they were asking, did you say that you were going to share the file in the chat?
Yes, I did share it. It is, let's see here. So there are 2 files that I shared. If you scroll up, you'll see range of biases and identifying your bias type.
Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about this bias type? Okay, alhamdulillah. All right, so for the second one, we have something called positive negative bias. So for this bias, it's a little tricky because, we think it's mostly positive with negativity, right? But sometimes that negativity comes, and it comes either with, unintentionally, mostly in this case, it comes unintentionally, right? So this comes from assumptions and stereotypes of Black people and Blackness that limits or stifle Black people and Blackness into boxes, meaning that there is limited knowledge that people have of this bias type. And it usually comes from misinformation, ignorance, Black entertainment, social media, living in proximity to Black people in urban environments, or clustered Black areas, or having Black friends who have internalized oppression. Do you remember in the beginning when we had that, when I told you that narrative about the immigrant teenager that came, and he thought that, all Black boys want to be rappers. And then he went to school with them. He went to school with some Black people, Black boys in the public school education, and they said the same thing. So it got reinforced. That is an example of limited knowledge. This bias can also view Black people as exotic, cool, something to imitate, leading to levels of cultural appropriation. And we'll talk about that in a bit. For example, when I came to Tampa for the first time, I was 12. I moved from an all Black Muslim community, and I went to an Islamic school for the first time. And the way I felt was I felt like a peacock. Like, you know, there weren't any. I think maybe there were one or two other Black people in the school, but I truly felt like a peacock, and that's what it means when you say exotic. You know. They might be down for the cause, but sometimes they might not really be down for the cause. So things like this, you know, traits is we call epidermalization, like I said, which is imposing race on the body. As humans, it's very hard for us not to do this because of how our society is set up. So if you have this trait, it's okay, right? It's the acting on the epidermalization that we want to watch out for, you know. Performative solidarity. This is support until it's at the expense of oneself. This means that in a lot of cases in which, you know, we claim solidarity, allyship, or a lot of corporations, right, or white people, you know, they're rocking with it until, okay, reparations means that they might have to give something up, you know. That's what that means. We have something like performative allyship. We have performative activism, and I'm going to break these down in a little bit too. Cultural appropriation of Blackness on levels of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to stop sharing real quick. I'm not going to stop sharing. Hold on real quick. I'm going to go to some of these definitions here for you all to see too. So when we talk about performative solidarity and allyship, we're talking about support, right? So like we said, at the expense of oneself, you know, making a bare minimum public display of support for marginalized communities in an effort to show that they are at one's side. And frequently there is an urge to say something until that silent, because saying silent means that you're complicit, right? We have, you know, like I said, performative activism. Done to increase social capital rather than because of devotion to a cause or sincerity to a cause. And we usually see this on social media when we share things, but we're not really down for the cause. We might share a video of something happening, but we're not doing anything about it. And when we talk about cultural appropriation, so level 1 is saying the N-word. And people might say the N-word out of, like, especially the youth, they'll say it out of camaraderie, out of sense of wanting to belong, endearment. You know, we have, you know, something called talking Black, meaning that trying to imitate Black speech, maybe wearing Black clothing. And then there's this new thing called digital blackface. And it means sending out or sharing memes that imitate Black behavior, or acting a certain way on social media that imitates Blackness or Black people. And so I see a lot of that, especially amongst the TikTok generation. Level 2 means romanticizing Blackness, even to the point of fetishization. And so an example I'm going to give is saying, ooh, I want to marry a Black man, or I want to be with a Black man so I can have mixed race babies. That's an example. Level 3, we have plastic surgery blackface. And so that means is that, you know, wanting to get BBLs or, you know, lip fillers or anything that for your body to actually physically resemble a Black person's that has Black features. Level 4, we have something called fungibility or capitalization. And you'll see this on your chart as well. And this can be unintentional, but this can be intentional or subconscious. It means profiting off of Blackness, off of Black people, whether it's setting up a gas station in majority Black communities, or talking a certain way, or within social media to get more following, right? It can also be, you know, something as simple as, you know, owning something like having a grocery store in an all Black neighborhood. You know, these are the ways in which, if the Black dollar is leaving out of the community, or if there's literally profiteering off of Black people, Black culture, then that is what we call capitalization, racial capitalization. And then of course for level 5, we have actual blackface, meaning you're literally putting on paint, you know, and mocking. That's the traditional form of blackface. All right, let me see here. So some of the things that another traits that we have for this is ignorance, meaning that your knowledge of Black people comes from ignorance, or it can also come from, you know, being miseducated, meaning someone misinformed you of something. It can come like of religious superiority complex. And when we say what the religious superiority complex is, it is the superior, prideful, arrogant, and privileged attitudes, belief, speeches, and actions of a group of people who have received religious scripture first and or have received it longer over groups of people who have received it later. Real quick. Or have received it more recently. So it can be these attitudes, beliefs, speech, and actions can, you know, sometimes be unintentional or even to the point of subconscious. When we did the write out biases that you've heard, one of the slides that we did was in the Muslim community. Some of those biases that you named were actually a part of was what we call a religious superiority complex. So that would be a part of it. It can be as simple as, you know, the religious superiority complex can be simple as, you know, I didn't know that Black people weren't a part of the Nation of Islam, you know, or I didn't know that there were African sheikhs, you know. It can be a wide range of things, you know. So that's what that one is. And up here, we also have offended when a Black person is aggressive, loud, silent, doesn't participate, or is argumentative, or has a defense mechanism, or doesn't respond to allyship. So often, sometimes in spaces, when Black people join spaces that are not usually Black, right, in allyship spaces and solidarity, you know, some Black people might be silent. And the reason why that they're silent is because, you know, number one, they've probably never been in this space before, so they don't really know how to act or conduct themselves, right? That's the first. Second is that there's still a fear of, okay, well, if I say something, it's not going to mean anything anyways. You know, there's that fear. The third fear is, you know, I still feel super hyper visible. You know, I feel like I'm being surveilled, you know, and I'm being put on a stage to do something, you know, to be tokenized, to be that jumping monkey, you know, so not wanting to do that as well. And there's just this fear is if I speak up, then something bad is going to happen. And so it's really important for non-white allies to be able to know those things and to not put pressure on, if a Black person is in your space, don't put pressure on them to speak, you know. Often, you know, myself and my mom, we are the loudest voices in the room sometimes, but it's because we had to work to get there, because we know that there are Black people in the space who might be in the space or are not going to say anything because they either don't know how or they're too afraid to stand up. And so I am out of the norm, and my mom is also out of the norm. And so it takes having individual relationships with Black people in your spaces to know which one is which, you know, and know that when I speak out, when my mom speak out, there's a level of uncomfortability, but it's because we know we have to, you know, because we have to do with others who will come after us. So that's for that one. And there is this also thinking that Black people should be grateful for the process being made or has been made grateful on their behalf. Like this, you are ungrateful if you don't, you know, accept what's given to you. And I've seen this in some spaces. You know, progress is made. The Civil Rights Bill passed, you know. Why aren't you, you know, grateful for that? You know, slavery is over. You know, it's things like this. And then, like we talked about before, microaggressions. And then the last one is called misogynoir. This is the intersection of race and sexism. It is the discrimination and prejudice that Black women particularly feel in any and all situations. So that is what misogynoir is. So for example, when I hope she doesn't mind me telling this, but when my mom gave birth one time, she was paralyzed for 3 months because the doctors stuck the epidural too far up. You know, that's something, right? Serena Williams, when she was giving birth, the doctors didn't believe her and was like, no, you don't have time to push. She pushed anyways, and she was almost about to die, right? The Black fertility rate, the Black mortality rate for women is extremely high because Black doctors don't believe women when they say, I'm in pain and I need to push, you know? The postpartum care afterwards, right? It's something that Black women also have to watch out for because they're also one of the first, you know, have the highest rating of death. So that is an example of misogynoir. Before we go on, because I know this slide was a lot because the nuances are a lot, you know, this wasn't a black and white bias type. So before I go on, does anyone have any comments or any questions? Okay, alhamdulillah, let's see here. Okay. Woo, so that one was a lot, but this one's pretty cool.
Well, Kalimah, some comments are coming in.
Oh, okay, awesome. All right, so we have one of my Black colleagues at Valencia shared with me that it's not her duty to explain her world. At first, I thought she was being difficult. Then after talking more with her, I learned that we know what is happening in our Black community. It is not the duty of Black people to educate us. And I now agree with her and have taken upon the opportunity to educate and be an ally. Yes, this is what we talk about when we say true allyship. You know, when we talk about allyship and solidarity, you know, sometimes, and honestly, it's probably also a part of our nature too. Like Black women are louder, you know, like we are, that's like one of the traits, but sometimes that loudness can be seen as aggressive, you know, or not wanting to cooperate. So alhamdulillah, I'm happy that you worked through that. So for this one's pretty light. We have interactions given based on outward identity as Muslim or other intersectional traits. So you are viewed as Muslim or human first, right? And then any other intersectional traits second. The difference between this and positive bias is that it's the intention, meaning I want to know you first as a sister, you know, as a Muslim sister or as a, you know, as a human. And then afterwards, you know, I can appreciate, you know, your culture, where you come from. We have things, you know, traits like solidarity, allyship, culture appreciation, knowledge or wanting to be to know more, you know, open-mindedness, right? We have viewing individual relationships as human first. And then for the first time, we're having also this thing of Islamic principles, of taqwa, of ihsan, of having adab, you know, of good manners, of, you know, this principle of one ummah, you know. So does anyone have any questions or comments before we move on from this one?
I'm still stuck on this concept of epidermalization. Can you give another example?
Mm-hmm.
I remember the definition, I wrote it down, but can you give me like a couple more examples?
I definitely can, yes. So for epidermalization, it is, like I said, is the imposition of putting race, you know, onto the body, right? It means that when you see someone, the first thing that you might notice that they're Black or they're white, you know, or they're Arab, you know what I'm saying? And then it is also have this aspects of surveillance, like you're watching them, you know, that is acting on epidermalization. Like anything that they're doing, you're zoomed on them. For example, when Black kids are in class, especially when I went to Islamic school, and anytime Black history was brought up, everyone would turn and look at me. That's an example of epidermalization, you know. When Black people are in spaces of solidarity or diversity, equity, inclusion, or whatnot, right? Or any space. And anytime something comes up, heads turn. What do they have to say? You know? I'll give you another school example. When non-Black teachers, you know, or even I should say, when teachers in general, non-Black and Black, and I'll tell you the reasons why afterwards. When non-Black and Black teachers have Black kids in their class, they're going to notice them more than other kids in their class. Like they might notice them more than other kids in their class. The non-Black teacher who notices the Black boy in the class is looking at him because he might cause trouble, or he's goofing around. He's the clown in the class. You know, he might even be the clown in the class, but she's having these characteristics that she's associated with Blackness is now put on this boy. Or she might be afraid of Black people. This Black boy, if he raises his voice at her, she gets scared, clutches her pearls. One of my brothers actually had a teacher like that when he was in middle school. You know, that's an example. The Black teacher who notices the Black boy more is looking at him because, oh my gosh, I don't want him to mess up. You know, I want him to achieve higher marks. She looks at him because it reminds her of her own son. You know, she might even discipline him more because she doesn't want him. She wants him to grow and succeed. She sees him as her own. You know, and so that's the difference, right? But Black, non-Black, there's still this ideology of epidermalization that when you first see someone, you're looking at them with race in mind, you know? So that's why I say that sometimes it's just natural sometimes, you know, like when you've been so conditioned to look at someone first as this is your race instead of this is my Muslim sister, this is my Muslim brother, you know? It's so deep like that, you know, and we don't even realize it. So the reason why we don't have that, we have that on here, but it's like second, you know. When we get to the next bias, which is neutral, it means it's not at all. And for that one, which I'm gonna go to real quick, it means basically you are the perfect human. You are the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know what I'm saying? Like in some instances, like you have prophetic character because you're looking at someone. The opposite of epidermalization means that interactions with that person means you were looking at them as human only, right? And one interaction with one human does not interfere with or influence the interaction with another person. Meaning that when I meet Sophia as Sophia, right? How I view her, what she does, I'm not gonna look at anybody else like that, right? When I meet Sadaf, when I meet Lori, right? I'm looking at them as them and nothing else. You know what I'm saying? My biases form from the individual interactions that I have with you, not based on race or any other identity group that you belong to. It means literally you are the perfect person, or you were aiming to be that person, you know? So does that kind of make sense? Okay, alhamdulillah. Does anyone have any more comments or questions? I love things. I love having questions. I'm like, oh. Okay, cool. All right, so like I said, with neutral bias, you are, you know, they literally come, the biases that you have are literally from the individual interactions that you have. So that's what that. And the traits that you have, these are things that we want to strive to have, you know. So you might not have it all the way, but if you do, alhamdulillah, you know what I'm saying? This means that you got it, you know, and this is what we want to strive to be. We want to have these principles of Islam. All right, so here. All right, so for this one, we call it the neutral negative bias. And so I would say that if I was to analyze the world right now, when we're talking about, or America, what we see often most is, especially like in more left-leaning spaces, we'll say left-leaning, right? Not more right. We have a lot of positive negative bias, and we also have a lot of neutral negative bias. Neutral negative bias means I don't see color. It's different from cultural appreciation and cultural assimilation, right? It is like this artificial practice of seeing people as individuals. And this is something we call color blindness, right? but you're not really colorblind. You know, you're not really appreciating the beauty of the person or individual that you're coming across. You're still have this imposition of race, of upnormalization on the person you're interacting with. You know, there's this belief that merit, working hard, you know, of not understanding the systemic barriers that block some identity groups from achieving the same success. It is the form of negative biases can be rooted in ignorance, miseducation, and discomfort. So some of the things that might come from neutral and negative bias is being defensive, hard to communicate with. There's this unconscious, subconscious thinking that Black people should be grateful, like we said. You've seen some of these traits, right? Some of the things that make it different is that, like, this pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you know, hard work provides opportunity. With this, there's this uncomfortability with Black Lives Matter because, you know, other lives matter too. And people are in this category who have this bias type are very uncomfortable with talking about race. There's this also thing where, you know, people are maybe even forgetful of any racial problems that happen unless it's in your face in the moment, like George Floyd. You know, there was this high rise of social consciousness, and then immediately there was this drop once the summer was over in the next year. Those are people who would identify with this neutral negative bias, meaning there's like this subconscious obscurity that you just forget about what's going on, you know, of these racial problems. And then you might even be colorblind. Well, I don't see color until someone who is Black tries to marry inside your family. And it's like, we not about that life, you know? And then there's also this fear or uncomfortability being around Black men as well. For example, I heard about a story in which a Black teacher had non-Black coworkers. And this one woman that he had worked with, she would always like do this as he passed her in the hallway, you know, like one of these moments. And it always bothered him, but, you know, he wasn't gonna do nothing about it. But like, that would be a moment, like I said, be like this uncomfortability, you know, around being Black, around Black men. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, so for this, we have negative positive. So for this, it's rooted in ignorance, miseducation, discomfort, fear, arrogance, and for the first time, we're seeing something, pride, meaning that your pride comes from, well, I'm from this qabil. I've been around a lot of Somalis a lot. That means tribe. I'm from this tribe, you know, I have this ethnicity. I'm from this, you know, this thing. I have religion first, you know, I've had the religion of Islam longer, you know. This bias can generalize while also being very selective, and this is what makes it very different, meaning that being around some Black people is okay. Viewing, you know, all Black people, you know, are negative in this view. However, there's this level of tokenization and selectivity, meaning that, you know, I have Black friends, you know, or, you know, like someone had said on one of the a sticky note on the Jamboard, Black people from some countries are okay, right? That would be something of this. And then of course, there's also this capitalization off of Blackness. And what's different about this one, and positive, negative, the capitalization is sometimes subconscious and you don't even know about it, like you don't realize it. But with this one, it is very intentional. You are intentionally capitalizing off of Black people, meaning that, for instance, in the 80s, when some of the drugs that were put into the communities, like cocaine, came from out of dealers, right? Knowing that I'm going to capitalize off of this, right? That's when setting up gas stations or grocery stores with, you know, knowing this is where they're gonna come, right? That's another one. So those are when we're talking about intentional capitalization. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? Okay, alhamdulillah. And for this last one, we have negative bias. The only difference between this and the other one is that there is no selectivity. It associates all Black people and Blackness with negativity. So this is the last one. It has basically all the negative traits that you can think about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, racial slurs, racial jokes. I don't care about nothing, you know. It's like Abid, you know what I'm saying? Zinji, like, no. So that's what this one is. So with this, did everyone complete their categories yet? If you didn't, it's okay. I'm gonna give y'all about like 3-4 minutes, categorize it up, and then let's see. Once you categorize it up, we're going to go to this portion. So if you can just, when you're done, just raise your hand. And when you're done raising, so I can know that everybody has completed this portion.
I have a technical difficulty because I can't write in the file or I can't make a mark in the file. I don't know if anybody else has that.
So what I can do, I can send also a Word document as well. So you can just type in as well. I think that'd be good. Let me see. Meeting.
Yeah, Kalimah, someone else also asked if you can share a document that can be scored because it's not showing up in the chat for them.
Okay, yes, I will send that document. And I'm also gonna send the PDF of all the biases types so that you have it too. So hold on. So I'm gonna send what's OneDrive. Okay, are you able to open up that document? I think it's a Word document.
And another suggestion was if you were able to share your screen, then it would be maybe easier to follow also.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I'll share my screen of the scoring document, or having all the range of biases together.
I think the scoring.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely share my screen. Let's see here. All right, what can you all see? Let's see here. Okay.
I can see it.
Okay. So I highlighted all of this on accident. But basically what you'll do is, so we went over the terminology. If you rate for solidarity and allyship, you can highlight it or just be like, okay, I got that. And then what you'll do is for each column at the bottom here, you'll add them up so that you know which bias type that you have the most. So from the ones that you selected. So I'll give y'all about like 5 minutes to do that. And then when you're done, just do the raise your hand Yeah, so click the raise your hand button so that I know, and we'll go on to the next part. And if you have a question about any of the terminology that we talked about today, at the bottom of here, I literally just highlighted all of this, but at the bottom, you're going, I have definitions listed out so that if you are like, oh, I forgot what this means, right? I forgot what epidermalization means, then it's down here as well. Anytime, I am going to de-highlight all of this. I'm gonna give y'all about a couple more minutes. Okay, so if you are not done, it's okay, and still keep working on it. We are going to just go on to the next slide. Let's see here. So what we're going to talk about next is our intervention, prevention, skills, and habits. So you all had just learned all of this information, right? it's probably, it was a lot to process. Like the information I just gave y'all, it takes years to like really, or months to really process all of that, right? It can give you complete learning overload. So for this last skill, for this last section, we're going to focus on our Build Yourself guide. That comes from from intervention and prevention skills. So just go over some terminology with you all, so you guys know what I'm talking about. A Build Yourself guide is a practice guide that is based on the training that we give you as Shajarah. And so what it does is that it develops your knowledge into expertise, tools that you can use into skills, actions into habits, and critical thinking for the future. So the development comes from practicing consistency and discipline. So what is intervention? Intervention are actions taken to stop and disrupt challenges. Prevention is actions that are taken that maintains disrupted or stop prevented previous actions. Skills are your tools to use. Habits are actions to practice. And for critical thinking for the future, they are intervention methods set up for the future to prevent you from returning to old habits and skills. And all it takes is, like you said, is consistency, discipline, desire, and time. So for example, if I want to go to the gym and I'm like, yo, I'm working out, I need to work out, right? My intervention skill is, okay, I got to throw these cookies away. Like I can't keep buying or Uber eating, some delicious chocolate cake at night. So that's my intervention skill. My prevention skill is, I got to go to the gym. I need to go to the gym every day, right? But for critical thinking for sustainable future, the intervention method is, okay, if I know I'm going to the gym and I know that the gym is going to rip through me, I have to stop eating sweets. If I want to get to the gym on time, I have to set an alarm. If I want to go to the gym at 5 a.m., I have to go to bed at 9 p.m., or I'm not going to be awake for the next day. So that's the difference between intervention, prevention, and future intervention methods that we call critical thinking for the future. And this is all very, very, it's simple in nature, but it requires a lot of discipline and consistency. So let's go. So this was, for example, of how it happened. This is like an example from another training that I did. So this was talking about like an Islamic school, like an Islamic school training. So some of the things that we said was like a lecture every week, or, a tool to use would be time management. An action that would be practiced is, reading Surah Al-Kahf on Fridays. Critical thinking is, having someone I can talk to when I slack off and remind me that I'm fighting for the good things, so having good friends, right? Putting consequences on myself if I don't do something, right? So for this Build Yourself guide, the great news is you already did the intervention exercise, all right? It had alerted to you to some of the bias types that you already have, the bias traits. And so through this training as well, which has also been another intervention method, inshallah, your consciousness has been awakened and the learning and relearning process has already started. So this part is super easy, right? So what we're gonna do is that I want you to pick one bias trait and the bias type that you identified most with, right? Or something that you want to learn the most and that you want to have, that you want to work on the most, okay? Pick one bias trait. And then what we're going to do is I want you to private message. Don't private message me. Private message Sister Shakira. Well, that sounds so weird. Private message my mom. What is the one bias trait that you want to work on? And also put your email. So the bias trait that you want to work on, maybe some context if you want to put some context to help, and your email. And at the end of both training sessions, I'm going to email you individually with a curated Build Yourself guide for you to practice and implement after this training. So for example, if the bias trait that you want to work on most is solidarity, right? Then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to give you something to learn, a tool to use, action to practice, and a critical thinking thing for the future. And so what's gonna happen is that there are 4 topics that we're supposed to go over. You're gonna have 4 slots. So 1 slot for each topic. And the point of doing that is that we don't want to overwhelm ourselves, right? Because simplicity is best, and working on just one thing, right, at a time is the best method that you can use for consistency, for discipline, right? For having the desire to do that thing and for it to develop over time. And what's great about that is that when you develop one thing, it automatically affects all your other things. It's like working out on leg day. You know, when you work out your legs, you're not just working out your legs, you're working out your glutes, maybe your abs, you know, you have overall endurance. So it's not just that one, you're thinking it's that one thing, but it's really not. It's impacting and affecting everything. So I want you to do for that. So I want you to pick, just pick one bias trait, email that, write in the chat box, direct message, Sister Shakira, your one bias trait in your email, and maybe something like if you want to put some context. So I'm gonna give y'all like 5 minutes to do that. Well, about three minutes, so you're kind of short on time. And I am so excited to put together these guides for you. It's gonna be great. So just let me know. Yeah, so just put in the chat. Also, what we can do too, if you all weren't done with the scoring too, and you want like a lot more time focused on it, what we can do as well is that we can make it homework so that for the next time you have the bias trait that you want to focus on. And for the next session, we can do that in the beginning where you email us your email and that bias trait if you don't have it right now. Does that sound like a better option for you all? Mm-hmm. Okay, I am seeing some head nods. That is great. The thing is also, I'm gonna well, Sophia and Salaf have this this PowerPoint. So inshallah, they can email this PowerPoint and email the other things to you too after this, and you can just have time throughout the week. So no, we talked about a lot. We did a lot of learning. So if that's better for you all, then that's completely fine.
Kalimah, I have a follow-up question. I want to make sure I'm understanding.
Yeah, please.
So when you're saying choose one of the bias traits, that means like any of the descriptions on any of the rows, right? So it could be solidarity and allyship, or it could be epidermalization. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So like, for example, if you were to choose negative stereotypes of Blackness and Black people, then the action plan would be how to eliminate those stereotypes. Is that how you want us to do it? Okay.
Yeah.
So it can be any of them on any of these rows. Just select one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Preferably if when you add it all up and you're like, oh, I have more of this identity trait, this, this bias trait, this bias type. And so I want to focus on a trait within this bias type, but if you want to focus on any of those traits, it's completely fine. I will form a guide around it. So.
Okay.
Okay, so we were supposed to have a 10-minute break, but we have 20 minutes left in this session. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rework the last section to include a lot of the stuff that we were supposed to talk about in this session into the next one. I apologize. I didn't factor in Maghrib, so it's on my bad, like taking time out for that. So I apologize for that. So that's kind of the reason why we have a little shorter time. So if you guys don't mind, I'm just gonna head straight into the second session. We'll just go over a little bit, And then next session, we'll complete the rest of the topic. How does that sound? Okay. Okay, so, oh, and also because you guys have this, you guys will have this this PowerPoint. You can go through the second session too if you want to read ahead of what was going to be said. I have the notes listed in the notes section of the PowerPoint. So if you want to just like, oh yeah, I want to peek of what we were supposed to do or we're going to do next week, then you know, you can definitely do that. All right, so the first session, we talked about biases. We talked about life cycle of biases, the range of biases. For this one, we're going to talk about internalized oppression and externalized, and how internalized oppression can be projected either through externalized oppression onto someone else, or it can be projected inwards into internalized oppression upon ourselves. So why is this important, right? So Sadaf talked about this a little earlier when she had noticed that, you know, some of the biases that we had listed on the Jamboard, they happen within our identity groups too, right? And that's the reason for that is because at some point, right, that externalized oppression that we have felt, you know, as marginalized peoples, that externalized oppression, you know, sometimes it filters withinwards and it's projected outwards. You know, so I'm going to show you through a graph in a little bit. One of my favorite sayings, and this also comes from doing domestic violence work, is hurt people hurt people. You know, when someone is hurting, when someone causes harm, it's often because they themselves have been at the end of it. And so, you know, this whole training is about eliminating biases, fostering sisterhood, allyship, and solidarity. And one thing that can block us from achieving these goals is holding the internalized oppressions that we have. They are definitely a barrier for us reaching that sisterhood. And they are definitely barriers for us practicing ihsan, taqwa, and the ideology of one ummah. So how does it happen, right? I'm a very visual person, so I have to see how it happens, right? So I have these visuals for you all. And it helps to work. So there's a dominant identity group, right, that holds power, privilege, and resources on all those three levels. Do you remember those levels that we talked about? The individual, societal, and worldly level. Well, what happens is that when that dominant identity group externally oppresses a marginalized identity group, right, that marginalized group internalizes the external oppression and is then projected through either externally oppressing someone of the same identity group or other identity groups. What can also happen is that it can be internally oppressive into oneself. So when we talk about, so I'm gonna, let's see here. So who are the historical and contemporary, who historically and contemporarily holds the most power, privilege, and resources? Who are we talking about when we say the dominant group, right? Usually when we're talking about sex, it means males, right? It means men. When we're talking about class, it usually means the rich. When it comes to race and ethnicity, it's a little different. There's two here. We have number one, PPR means it's abbreviated. The group, the dominant group that has historically or contemporarily oppressed, right? And then two, it is the group with the most power, privilege, and resources that is in proximity to you and shapes and influences your lived experience. Even if that power, privilege, and resource group is another community of color and has experienced the same historical oppression. That is why things like racism and misogynist our culture can exist in something such as the Muslim community, you know. Some of those root feelings that can come from internalized oppression, as we'll see real quick, it's fear, insecurities, and not being good enough. These are usually some of the root feelings that comes from when we have internalized oppression. There are more, but these are the ones that are usually common. That we are oppressive because we fear something is going to happen, right? You know, insecure. We feel some type of insecurity about ourselves, right? We feel we're not good enough. So the first way that we said that it can be projected is projected inward. It is internalized and affects how you view yourself, how you move, what actions that you take, you think, how you behave, and how you act. It can impact the decisions you make about yourself and for yourself. It can be embedded so deep into your subconscious that you don't even realize it. The second one is that it can be projected outward. Like we said, you know, hurt people hurt people. The externalized oppression that you experience and internalize can be projected outward and put it on someone else. So I'm going to give you an example of the first one. I'm going to give you a personal example. When I moved from my all Black Muslim community to Tampa, I was around people who were not Black for the first time. And I was very subconscious about my Black heritage and my skin color. And y'all see how fair I am. Like, I'm very light skinned. I am, you know? Suddenly in my teenage years, like, I was not proud to be Black. I called myself multiracial. I called myself multiracial or multicultural. And I don't know at what point that it happened. It may have happened when, you know, I got made fun of because of my Black American Arabic dialect, you know, when I was saying words like aki or other words that, you know, they were like, what are you trying to say? And it's like, you know what I'm trying to say, you know. Maybe it was like I wanted to grow my hair long because other girls, you know, had long hair, you know. But these were some of the internalized messages that I had. I was also very insecure, like I said, about my skin color and what it meant for my children to be Black. You know, I thought if I had married a Black man, then they would have a harder time in the world, that they would be discriminated against, that they wouldn't make any money, and that they would be called monkeys, just like my brothers were in our community. Or worse, that they'd be incarcerated. So in my teenage years, I really had decided that I was never going to marry someone who was Black. I would never marry a Black man. And I thought that the best chance that I could give my children was if they could pass as anything but Black. And so that's how the externalized oppression that I had gone through had been projected inwards. And so those were some of the actions that I thought I was going to take. And it didn't take until I left and surrounded myself amongst Black people again that some of that stuff started to change. Alhamdulillah. The second way is when internalized oppression, right, is projected outward. So I'm going to give you an example from the Black community. When we come back next week, inshallah, we're going to do more work on some of the things within your community, but I'm walking you through some examples so that you know what to look out for when we talk about what are some of the internalized oppressions that you see in your own community. So one from the Black community is that one of the reasons that Black parents whoop their kids is this thought that, like, if kids aren't taught at home, then the world will teach them. The police will teach them. That if I don't discipline my kid, then there's a good chance that the police will, and it's not going to be pretty when they do, you know. And if it's for those reasons, that is an internalized oppression that is projected outward. So, does anyone have any questions or comments before we move on?
There was ISPU just released a survey. They always do a Muslim American poll, and they had data about Islamophobia, and the group that had the most Islamophobia were not the most Islamophobia were white people, which it seems like it makes sense, but it said it was white people, but not converts. So it was surveying Muslims. So what happened was, what they think it is people that are identifying as white, but are not converts. So a lot of people of Arab descent or anybody on the survey, they select white. They are the ones who are saying that the most Islamophobic things. I have the most Islamophobic views. So it just showed that they had experienced, I don't even know if I'm making sense. They experienced the Islamophobia. In turn, they identified themselves as white, and then they had the most Islamophobic views. So it was really interesting when they pointed that out, like someone asked that question, that it wasn't the converts that were having the most Islamophobic views. It was those people that weren't converts, but identifying as white.
Wow. I can't even imagine. Well, I can, because I went through it in school, the aftermath of 9/11. Like, it really did a number on the Muslim identity, you know. And I wonder about that age group that they did the survey on, you know, like who, you know, I would love to read that survey. If you can send that out, that'd be great. But that is an absolutely excellent example on how internalized oppression can be projected inward and projected outward within our own communities. So we have about 7 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you with one poem, and then we'll do actually, let's see, 6:53. Let's see here. Okay, yes. So I'm going to play one poem for you all. That is an example of an internalized oppression. And you all are going to just tell me, you think it's projected inward, projected outward, or both. And that'll be our last thing that we're going to do before we end our session. And then I'll see y'all in 2 weeks. So for this, this was another spoken word piece by the Brave New Voices team, by the Denver team in 2015. So it's called Two White Parents.
To white parents with brown babies, we know you are trying. Raising children in your image gets complicated
when we turn out to be what your people have been destroying for centuries.
when your lineage is not recognized as your own. It must be a challenge to watch your skin boil to molasses, never being sweet enough for afternoon tea.
Baked into secrecy, hiding, hoping I will pass for my grandparents' family.
My mama says my skin looks like brown sugar. It is her favorite compliment. I know she is aware of the syrup that makes me, the sticky she cannot part from. Maybe she knows I will never be as pure as the blood she gave me. Mama, I do not know how to tell you we are living two separate experiences, though our faces are similar. It is your skin everyone listens to.
To white parents with brown babies, know your child will become accustomed to darkness first. Do not teach them to be afraid of it.
Teach your children mugshots. Teach your children their lives matter.
Never let them know what it means to have volcanic rubble for a larynx.
Do you know what it's like to speak with spilled urns in your throat? I am made into novelty while preserving oral tradition, pronouncing words you cannot.
The man I call my father likes to tell me he doesn't think about race, as he stands in the place of the black man who came in my mother and left. When he lets my daughter's black slip through his canines, I wonder if he knows what that means.
If white parents think their brown children benefit from the same luxuries that they do,
Is this why he tells me not to say nigga?
like my agency is not defined by my people, but the ones I live with. My parents parents' voices will never sing love songs. My mother was just one more white girl trapped in jigaboo temptation. My father mesmerized by her milk and honey. They made love under a fort of curiosity, turned fascination into a family. I am systematically ripping away everything that is taboo and reflective of my oppressor's tactics. How do I unlearn something that was never meant to be digested? Is there a self-help book on decolonizing these parts of me to white parents with brown babies? Giving them a tape of slave spirituals paired with a picture book of smiling Negroes, happy to be working in the sun with all of their colored friends, isn't enough. Do not forget your history erased parts of theirs. Do not hide this from your children. Know there are things you are allowed to be wrong about. To my white mother, you once told me that you wanted to send me to Haiti so I could be with my people. You, of all people, should know I'm not Haitian. My whole childhood was a microaggression. You scream for white recognition. Mama, you boast you are MLK descendant for having sex with my father's character and not the color of his skin. Your dictionary definition of racism was written by white men, so they too could know suffering. As if saying the word cracker would form a lynch mob. As if you didn't swaddle your babies in white hoods. My oppression is your accessory. Mama, you only know discrimination vicariously. Raising brown babies is not affirmative action. Stereotyping you doesn't get you killed. I am rewriting the history you gave me. Be grateful I love you enough to educate you. Your ultimate privilege.
She said there were so many moments in that. I was like, oh, the affirmative action one gets me every single time. I'm like, oh my God.
No, there is just so much emotion in that, and there's so much fact, and it's like, damn, we have a huge place to go. We don't understand each other. We don't understand, the complexities of what people are going through and their own identity, and everything is whitewashed, and that is the status quo. So everything else is other, and nobody likes to be othered.
Absolutely. Like, this was 2015. That was 7 years ago. Like it's still here. You know what I'm saying? So we're about to get off, and I have a couple of things to say. But before I do you know which pathway that was? What pathway did that internalized oppression take?
Both.
Okay. Why do you think so?
I'm trying to remember like the lyrics of what they were saying, but I would say it's definitely internalized oppression, because they're speaking about the oppression that, like, when they talk about their fathers and when they talk about themselves and how their skin is different from their mother's skin. But then I would say it's also what was the second one?
Projecting outward, externalized
Projecting out, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was just so much emotion as well towards their mothers who are white, and I can't think of like a specific phrase of like why I think it's that way, but maybe somebody can help me out.
I think it was towards both parents. It wasn't just one parent. I feel like there was a lot of anger, and projected towards their parents for what they were put through. So I do see a bit of the outward as well.
I think the one line that really was very hurtful, that when her mother said, I'll send you to Haiti to be with your people, that line is like boom to the heart right away. It's very difficult. And I don't know, she came to understanding later, or when she was young, she internalized it. And then she got out of it later, and that's why the anger and the hurt is coming.
And the way she said, like, Oh, the way I was brought up was a microaggression, like the whole way she was brought up. Um that was really eye-opening.
Man.
And I think just
Yeah,
this
like when they
idea
said,
of,
I don't see color, when the dad was like, I don't see color, that means you don't see me. Like I'm not living the same life that you are.
Sophia, what were you about to say?
and I
But
was thinking too, just the way that the whole, like their parents being together and having them in and of itself is a crime. Like for me, that's the externalized oppression, like saying that because their parents had them, like that it's almost as though that's a crime or something. Like for me, that communicates the externalized oppression.
so I do have a question, and forgive me, it's late at night, so maybe I missed it. I want to understand it in a deeper way. When, because part of it, we need to treat the individual as individual, and not race should not be there. But at the same time, we shouldn't be colorblind. So can you reconcile that for me, like how we should deal with it?
Yeah. So when we're interacting with a person, right, on an individual level, right, if I was just to meet you, right, in person, then I would want you to meet me as me, you know, as Kalimah, and I would want to meet you as Amani, right? However, at the same time, you know, I would also want you to know this is where I come from. That when we have discussions and I said, oh my gosh, I had such a hard day, and you know, my boss was giving me a look like he hates me because I'm Black, right? I would want you to know, why did my boss give me a look that hates me because I'm Black? Is because he's racist? Because, you know, he only thinks that I'm loud and aggressive when I'm really just trying to explain myself, you know? I would want, so when we look at the bias trait, the bias types, right? When we talk about a positive neutral type, right? It means that we are dealing with each other on an individual level, like our relationship is our relationship, but also, you know, where I come from, what my background is, and you know the struggles that I'm going through, that it's not easy for me to get ahead in life because, you know, because of racism, because my neighborhood is segregated, you know, because I didn't go to the best schools because they defunded the school district, you know. So so it's like both, you know, or when I say I have to go to this rally because they just shot a Black boy down the street, you're going to be like, oh, I want to go too. You know, we're going to do something about this, right? So we're treating each other on our individual level. And if we're Muslim, then we're absolutely treating each other with that Muslimness in mind too. But you know where I come from, and I know where you come from, you know, like I know that, you know, I don't know if you came from a war, you came here as a refugee, for example, you know, I know the reason why you came here as a refugee. And I think it's messed up. Anytime, I don't know if you're Palestinian or whatnot, if there's a rally, I'm gonna go with you too, because that's not right. You know, I'm gonna show up at the fundraisers. I'm gonna be out there with my flag too, be like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I know we dealing with each other on an individual level, but we know where each other come from, and we know each other's struggles, and we're down for each other's struggles. Not because I'm Black or because you're something else, because we're human and because we're Muslim.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Have you ever gone to a rally and to represent, let's say, another group of people as a Black person and been segregated? You're there to support the group, but then you're made to feel like you don't belong. A Muslim group.
Yeah, I've personally never experienced that. And I think a couple of reasons why I've never experienced that is because my mom has done a lot of work in the community, so everybody knows her, alhamdulillah. And she's built up a lot of amazing relationships. And my community, even though it's not really Black, there's, you know, they're just trickling in. For the most part, they treat each other on a Muslim level. You know, I experienced microaggressions, but not like heavily direct, I don't like you, you know. So I think that's why. And I think another reason why is because colorism. If you look at me, I don't look phenotypically Black sometimes. You know, like I look, maybe I could be Black, maybe I can't be Black, you know. When someone sees me on first sight, a lot of the times they don't think Black. They think, what is she? Or maybe she's North African, you know, maybe she's like in a proximity, like I know, you know. It's not until like I speak, and even then they're confused, because if they're Arab and they hear me, they're gonna be like, oh, does she know Arabic? Because her accent, you know what I'm saying? They're gonna wonder. And then it's not until I be like, oh no, you know, my parents are Black, and then there's this confusion, like, but wait, where are your parents from? Where are your grandparents from? You know? So to answer your question, I have never experienced that for those reasons, but it is possible that other people have experienced that, right? Because of maybe they look more phenotypically, look more Black, right? They have more Black features, or, you know, they didn't grow up in the community, or, you know, their parents weren't vocal and weren't making moves in the community, like weren't, you know, building relationships. So it is absolutely completely possible for that to happen.
It happened to me, and it was not a very good feeling at all. It you know, you go to support, and then you turn around and you're made to feel like you don't belong. That's one of the things that I've experienced as a part of general speaking, not, you know, a specific community, but it kind of leaves a bitter taste in your mouth when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because, you know, and that's one thing that you can internalize, you know, that right there, that is a form of externalized oppression that can be internalized, right? And to be like, oh, maybe I'm not wanted, or maybe they don't like me, or, you know, because of how I look or whatnot, you know, because of the externalized oppression that those people had internalized and then projected outward towards you, you know. And at the end of the day, some people are also very tribal or very cultural, you know, so they stick to their own. And that has nothing to do with white supremacy or anything like that. That has to do with, number one, human nature, and two, just historically how things have been done from wherever they came from, you know.
Got it.
But it does not reflect anything on you, though.
Thank you.
Sometimes I've also seen in some of those rallies, they want the voices and the people that are up front, the people that are most directly impacted. So I have experienced what you're saying, Nortel, but I try to understand maybe why they want specific voices in that space. And I just stay in the back myself a little bit intentionally too, because I feel like I'm there as an ally and I want to support, but I can't really share from that place of knowing like they can. But my presence being there, you know, as an ally sometimes is in the background, because I don't want to take their voice and their space either.
Right. Understood. To not stretch this out anymore, I'll tell you exactly what happened. Handing out banners and stuff to people at the rally, and there was a person next to me. Of course, they weren't Black. They got a banner, and another one next to me, and when they came to me, they said, no, you know, we don't have any more to give out. Then they passed me and went to somebody else. That kind of direct, I would think. And I think it might be exactly what was said relating to their aggression they're putting on to, you know, or maybe they just want to keep it within themselves, within their group. It's, hurt people, absolutely. And so, but that one stopped me from going back again, though.
Yeah, I completely understand. And, you know, some people might go back, I would urge you to, when you're ready, right, to not internalize that, because the work, if that's work that you are passionate about, right, that you want to help in, the work's got to get done. You know what I'm saying? So if that's something that you were like, okay, I want to go back, I would go back and, uh, that and trying to change the mindset, change the flow. Remember we were talking about when biases, right? Biases are ingrained until they're repeatedly disrupted, you know? Maybe some groups also, I know particularly for Black people sometimes, are not welcome to the space because, there's a suspicion or distrust of any other outside group because they've just been so, you know, hurt throughout the decades or destroyed, or, snitched on, it's just, there's a lot of hurt for when you're invited to a Black space, when you go to a Black rally and Black people are not receptive, it's often because of distrust and previous distrust, right? But continually showing up, continually having that genuine, and sincerity, that's what people really respond to. They respond to sincerity and to being genuine, but it takes time and it takes a lot of space, and also not you know and and healing the internal oppressions that you have, not letting it get to you. So
Right.
inshallah,
Inshallah.
I'm praying for your journey, sis. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
We do have one question, what can I do to help my grandkids who will grow up with the same challenges? One has more melanin than the other.
Can I add a little bit to that question? Because I do also have children that are darker skinned than me, and my daughter tells me about her experiences, and I add to Lori's question, how can I validate her feeling and not making her feel a victim, all the time? Like, how can I balance those? Thank you very much.
So I would love to take this question, but I'm actually going to pass to my mom, because we had a situation with that with my younger sister. My younger sister has received more direct forms of racism and discrimination than I ever did. And the reason I highly believe is because she does look more phenotypically Black and she is darker. And it boils my skin, but she has from kindergarten up. And so, I remember this one time I bought her this beautiful backpack of this Black girl's rock, and it was so cute. She was in elementary, and the backpack was glorious, but she never took it to school, and we didn't find out until a few weeks later. And then we asked her, she started breaking down crying, So, Mama, you want to answer this question, because you're the best at this question.
I think what I ended up doing was really just having to affirmations, and just keep pumping that in, because it is difficult. Like, just to give you an example. So obviously you can tell I'm fair skinned. Kalima's the oldest, she's fair skinned. The son, the child after Kalima has green eyes, and he's fair skinned. The next one is fair skinned and has curly hair. You'd think he's Hispanic. And then the youngest is darker skin, and her hair texture, everything's different. She has more Caribbean, and she has Caribbean in her, different father. And so she definitely, received a lot more of the aggression and microaggressions. And then I ended up really just having to show her and pump up the beauty of herself individually, and giving her that power to be who she is and be authentic to herself. And then as a young girl, making her feel pretty, making her feel seen, making her feel heard. And then I remember she came to me, must have been, when I tell you, I can't even count on two hands how many instances of aggression that she's received. I never even introduced race to her. The Islamic school did. The kids were passing out candy, one kid, and they passed her up. They said, you can't have any because you're Black. That was the first time. She's been called a black dog. She's been called, she's Aliyah, she has the most beautiful qiraat. You think Kalimah has an accent. Aliyah's recitation of Quran was is just gorgeous because she grew up with her. She's the littlest of everybody. So now she's a teenager, but all her brothers were, you know, Hafiz and things like that. So when they would come over the house and practice Quran, you know, they would, she'd pick up on it and she would recite. And when she went to go, she used to love Quran. And when she went to try out for the, she wanted to go to the after school Hafiz program, the Desi women told her no, because she was American and she couldn't understand Quran. And she didn't pick up the Quran again for another 2 years. She recently found a new teacher that made her love it. But then there was a head mistress that came in and they were doing a program, you know, an assembly. So they had to go and figure out who recites the best Quran. They went around to everybody to have them recite, but they skipped over her because she was American. I mean, it's just, you know, and I say that to say, huh?
So I remember she fought for her at the end and she had the best one, but they didn't pick her anyways.
So I say that to say, for her not to have internalized aggressions, you know, or against people that she's met, you have to also tell them there's just bad people. And I'll leave this with you guys. So she came to me, and this is before, and this was about maybe 7 at this point, you know, she's like almost 14 now. And she said she was crying and she got herself together. And then I had to show her images of other, you know, Black people that looked like her, that were amazing and astounding and had these just great characteristics. Because she told me, she said, you know, nobody likes Black people. And I said, what do you mean? This is at 7. She said, well, you and Kalim were always fighting for the rights of Black people because nobody likes them. And then she wasn't wrong, right? And then she says, and I don't want to be one of them either, because we live, here it goes, and this is a caution tale to both of you, my sisters, about the images we show our kids. So we lived in just, I hadn't even realized it, you know, she wasn't around Black people other than our, you know, our neighbors were white. Every place we go was white, right? So when we'd go into the urban areas, she'd see Black people that weren't dressed right. They'd have, you know, shower caps on or whatever. So she didn't want to be like them. They didn't look well. They didn't look good. And she came back to me and she said, you know, Mom, I think Iblis was the first racist. And so maybe those people are just bad like them. But it's going to be constant, you know, and it's something that, and I have had to check even these guys, because they, you know, the older set, I have 2 separate sets. You cannot let family members talk about color in the house. You know how families, we all talk about, you know, we say stuff, right? But you have to nix that, because they are going to be self-conscious. They are going to feel away. There's no way that you're going to protect them from that. So you're going to have to build them up and speak into that, and then be aware outside of their presence that everybody's going to have to be conscious about their biases and what they say. You know, it's easier for a Black boy with green eyes to talk about somebody who's darker skinned, right? Yeah, so you have to be aware of that. It comes out differently if you are that darker skinned person, you know.
Thank you. So basically, just affirm and validate and empower their beauty and their courage and their qualities.
Yep.
Thank you.
Their uniqueness, their one of a kindness, all their other positive attributes, you know. And then you actually have to do a deep dive on biases, you know. And people are stupid and they don't know any better. It has nothing to do with you, you know, but this is the world we live in, because you want them to be strong. I'm an advocate for strong women and strong children, especially girls, you know. And guys have it easier. They just do, you know. Everything that we have is so tied to our looks and our who we are as women, how well do we cook. And so, I mean, there's so much superficial things that go into the value and ranking of women. It's hard on us. And so I try to teach them, to not fall into that, and dispel that. Even just recently, we were getting our nails done. We went to sorry, Kalimah, you weren't there, but we went to go get our nails done yesterday. And on the screen was, they were selling sex, basically. It was light skin, it was white women in their little bikinis or whatever. I think it was supposed to be the Bahamas, but that's not what they were selling. And so they're gonna end up being more intelligent, because you're gonna tell them, you're gonna speak intelligence into them. And I said, see, they should be selling Bahamas, but they're selling sex. You don't need to fall into that. You know what I mean? So I'm talking real life education into her, so that she's aware when she sees it. Okay, that's shaitan. That's just that. That's how I found that I have to speak it to the intelligence and then the heart.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think you said it all, Mom. Yeah, absolutely.
Ladies, we here late.
We was rocking. I really appreciate this session. This is one of my favorite trainings. It really has, like, you all have been so amazing. So here's what's gonna happen next. Sometime this week, I'm going to send Sophia I'm gonna resend her an email with the PowerPoint with the bias type sheets. You can go through it and really think about which bias type you think you have. I'll send that range of bias PDF as well. And then what I'm also going to send is the pre-work for the next session. So we're going to finish the session for sure. What I want you to do is the next session, there's this amazing clip. It's a debate between James Baldwin and William Buckley back in the 1956. It's an amazing debate, 1955. You're going to watch the whole, like, a part of it, and you can watch or rewatch it. We're only going to take little clips of it to discuss for topic 3, but all of it is just absolutely amazing. So I want you all to know, like, what we're talking about. And then if you want to go back and into this session, topic 1 and topic 2, you're a-okay to do that. Just go through the slides. The notes are in the section, in the PowerPoint section. So everything that I've been saying, I was scripted. I mean, some of it was off script, but I was definitely scripted. So you can follow along too. And then if you need any definitions, right, of anything that I'm saying, those are in the PowerPoint, and they're in the range of, they're in the identifying your bias type score sheet. It's like right below. I'm going to put my email in the chat, or mom, can you put our email in the chat? And if you have any questions, or if you want to talk or anything like that between now and the next session, it's admin@shajarahconsulting.com. Then please reach out. I would love to talk. We can be like, hey girl, what's up? Is anything like that. So yeah. So we have 2 weeks. So I'm gonna give y'all some pre-work. It'll be sometime this week. So definitely be able to give it to y'all. Thank y'all so much for being a great audience. Thank you so much to the Women's Action Network, to MWO. I really appreciate all of this for y'all. Like, this has been so amazing. And then next time we're gonna go, because I gave you guys one example of internalized oppression, but we're gonna continue on to a second example of internalized oppression, talk about it, and then what we're going to do is talk about the internalized oppressions. I talked about it from a Black standpoint, but now we're going to do more of what are the ones that you recognize in your communities that you belong to, the identity groups, and then ultimately within yourselves. So we're going to go through that analysis too, so we can do some deep work on ourselves, So with that being said, we are closing out. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we close out?
Just a big thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone. And Kalimah, what time is it where you are?
It is 7:26.
Okay, so